But those of you that do work with your hands, and that includes such simple things as housework and washing up and cutting vegetables and peeling an apple and even putting food in our mouths. These are all absolutely perfect opportunities to be present and attentive to what we're doing. You don't need anything sophisticated. Just the ordinary little business of living are all we need, just to be attentive, to work with your mind, to work with our hands. Where is it? Are you passing it around? Oh, yes, you are. Good. This other one, if you open the flap, you'll see that was made in 1928 by my mother when she first came as a little refugee from Russia. And she went to a handicrafts school in North Newcastle and made that little purse, which was then presented to who we call the Queen Mother. Do you remember, who died a few years ago, the mother of our present Queen, when she was a young woman, young Duchess of York, I think she was called. So another something beautiful, isn't it, made by hand that's stood the test of time. Well, isn't that something to, worth doing? Where's my purse? Don't run away with it, dear. It's got all my values in it, all my valuables. It was presented to the Queen Mother, in the way they do. They look at it, don't they, and then they give it back to you, Otherwise, what would they do with all their presents? Yes, isn't it worn well made? It's nearly 100 years old, still in use. Mother would never claim to be anything other than a housewife, mother and housewife. But you should have seen the house, every surface shone. And every time she laid the table, it was a work of art. The way she ironed our clothes, the way she knitted our clothes. Where's this wool? This was knitted by her. God knows how old this is. Not quite as old as me, but almost. Still as good as new. The worth of things, the true worth, let's connect it back with this reality we're talking about. How does we talk about it? God is good, you see, and all goodness, everything that lasts, that we recognize as having value, has a connection with being present and the presence. And when we work with some sort of awareness of this, in other words, work carefully, something of that TLC, of that true authority comes into our hands, doesn't it? Into the words we speak, into the things we write, into what we make. And this is what's called quality, as opposed to quantity. Quality. Instinctively, you look at a flower, it has quality, doesn't it? Every daisy is a miracle, isn't it? In this life, we have two choices. We can turn towards God or away. This is our choice. Look at my face. The sun is shining through the window. My face is lit, isn't it? And because you've all got your backs to the window, you're all in shadow. Now, if you turned round and faced that way, your faces would be lit, wouldn't they? Look at me. If I turn round, my face is in shadow, isn't it? Now this is sin. Sin is turning away from the light. It's as simple as that. And if I do that, I project darkness, the works of darkness. And this is our human condition, is that most of us, most of the time, are simply not present. We are absent from the presence of God. And this is why we, first of all, we don't know, so we ask questions, often of other people who don't know either. And hence all our human confusion. Do you know, a few minutes ago we were all wonderfully present. There wasn't a question in your heads, was there? No, it's as simple as that, says Jonathan. We can turn towards God or away. And that may begin with just doing our simple practice of reading the good book. Or coming to a college like this, maybe. Starting the journey. Or it may be as simple as taking the dog out for a walk, getting a breath of fresh air, or just lifting up our eyes and looking out of the window. Or maybe just standing in a busy street and remembering feet on the ground. Looking at all the people rushing past, lost in their heads, lost in their thoughts. You're asking me what name and form I give. Well, the moment I start putting name and form on something, I start limiting it, don't I? I start putting it in a little box called this is this and this is that. Yeah. And then this, because this is that, something else is different, isn't it? So you get separation and you begin this slippery slope into what's called duality. Instead of the one, we get the many, many, many. What do we call? What do we think about it, etc., etc. So, in one sense, I can give you a simple answer: yes. It's the voice of darkness or the voice of light. And you see, there are many, many shades of darkness. Rather than black and white, there's different shades of grey, isn't it? Some many, many shades. So be careful of these absolute statements, because things are. Simplicity is very, very simple, but we can easily get into complication. But certainly, instinctively, we recognize quality, don't we? We recognize what's good. There's a sort of natural discrimination in all of us. You know, every woman that goes shopping almost instinctively knows what's better, don't they? Well, most people do. Naming things is not necessarily useful. We must carry our cross in this life, and you'll take on lots more, my dear, as you grow older. See, we're in this world. You know, and I assure you, we go on developing throughout our entire life. It's not just when we're young. And one of the things that I always feel safer speaking from my own experience is how, I think particularly during my Russian years, I took on the deeper meaning of what it means to bear one another's burdens. You see, why did God send his Son into the world? In order to relieve our sins, wasn't it? Relieve the ignorance of the world. To take that weight upon himself, you see, and so lift the burden, as it were. And so, at every stage of life, we take on. You know, you take something else, you get over that, but then you take on something else. If it's not from your own experience, what about compassion? You take on the burdens of those around you, all those that come to you, all those that pour out their troubles. We all know trouble shared is trouble halved, isn't it? If you pour out your trouble to somebody else, you feel better, and the other person takes them. Well, when we take on other people's burdens, we can either be crushed by them, or we can, if we can, turn to the Almighty, who has the strength to bear them. And this is really the work. The more we can take on the weight of the world and surrender it to God, that is real work. This is working with and for others. This is the second stage of the work. So be ready, because as your responsibility widens, so you will take on more. This is the next stage in the work. First of all, for ourselves. Oh, great, I found the truth. Now you've got to take on everybody else. Look how young people are discovering now what it is to feel for the poor old world that's been knocked about so much by man. A good thing too. Take on responsibility. So dear, strengthen your shoulders for the big burdens. For sure they'll come your way. But see, when we come into this presence, what do? We do this, just this, as simple as that. Let go, let God. Because as St. George shows us, see, they're not really as real as we think. It's we think they're real, we take them for real. My God, they become real, as Bob's just described. But this we have to learn. We're children. We're learning in this school of life that the demons are not as real as we think. But my God, they seem real when they come, don't they? Someone else described at breakfast camping, and when two Rottweilers turned up, because you immediately think, my God, I'm going to be eaten up by these creatures. And then they because he met them without fear, then even if they didn't wag their tails, they turned and went away. Well, isn't that what happens so often? Well, I had 10 years of compulsory scripture lessons at school. I had no choice about it. It was just the way education was then. So I suppose these things are deep in my subconscious, really. They tend to come out. Then I had many years, dear. I like many young people, I explored far and wide, and I've never been too keen on calling myself a Christian. I don't now, because I don't really like labels. And see, when you come into, as we were a few minutes ago before we started passing the purses around, we were so present, it was so real to us, wasn't it? You all understood exactly what I was talking about. This I am the way, the truth and the life. Well, you don't need to call that Christianity. You don't need to call it Jesus. It just is. It's just common sense, isn't it? It's just there. And it just happens to be the words that Jesus spoke, and so these words come out. But you don't have to call it Jesus' words. The words are just self-evident, aren't they? They're coming out of my voice. So, you see, the more we come into the oneness, really the significance of names, I suggest you melts away. That's all right, there are all the different religions in the world, but when you come into oneness, what are they? Is it one or the other? Or is it all of them or none of them? You know, names are down here, Here, the oneness is here. You see, just like before the rain falls, before even the clouds form, up in the sky, there is the most subtle water vapor, or I don't know, there's some word for it, I don't know. And then we can't see it, it's invisible. And then it condenses into little, first delicate little fluffy clouds, and then they form into thicker clouds, and then they fall as rain, and the rain forms puddles and lakes and the sea, and then maybe comes along frost and it freezes into ice, you see. So creation precipitates, is like crystallization from the formless into the names and forms of what we call this world, including names and divisions and subdivisions of religion. All these different crystallizations of the various things. We as bodies are really crystallized spirit, aren't we? First of all, there is this oneness, and then it just gradually forms. So a little unformed baby in the womb, a lump of jelly, gradually it takes on form and eventually comes out and becomes a mature man, and then the man in the grave disintegrates, is eaten by worms and goes back to Mother Earth again, and so it all cycles round. Well, so it is. So questions about name and form can either be answered at that level or by referring back to see where it all comes from. And then, the complexity is dissolved away and you come to the simplicity. So it's all one. And then these questions are valid, they have their time and place, but perhaps you'll forgive me if I leave that unanswered and come to where the answer to every question, in fact, is that there is no question. People were always asking whether again I refer back to my time in the school of meditation where I learned, and we're always asking, well, what religion is it? But it wasn't a religious thing. It was entirely, references were made to religion, but it wasn't a religious tradition. Neither was it secular. I don't know what it was. Just didn't have a label on it. It was just as I keep telling you, feet on the ground, you see. Well, is that a Christian practice or Hindu practice or God knows what practice? It's just common sense, isn't it? Feet on the ground. Listen and look. Yes, common sense, dear. I think that's the best way I can describe meditation. It's just common sense. And take those words seriously. Common sense. Listening and looking. They're the main two senses, aren't they, that we all use? And we're just required to be sensible. Use the things. And we don't, do we? We're simply not aware. We're not sensible. We're cuckoo. We live in our heads. Common sense brings us into the present. Pre-sense, you see, that which was before it crystallized into listening and looking. But listening and looking sort of leads us into pre-sense. And then you're on the way into the infinite beyond description, but which is so infinitely, I can't use words like attainable, you don't get it, but you just are it, aren't you? You recognize it, that's real. It's what I am. It's what one is. Again, take these words are so precise. What one is. And we talk of little me as a oneself, don't we, with a small o. This is the big oneself with the big O, of which we are a reflection. Know oneself. Try to be present. Do you remember what it was like learning to ride a bicycle when you were a little boy. I don't know if you've been to dancing classes, something like that. I remember as a soldier being taught to march. And you start off with, the wrong arm swinging to the wrong leg. The more you try to do something, the harder it becomes, don't you? Then one day you suddenly find you can actually balance and it works out okay. Yes, exactly. It's funny, isn't it? How our trying often becomes counterproductive. I do like now very much to think of, and again it's easier than me looking back to see how do we become from a child into a youth, and how do we grow up into the beginnings of a man, and then into a mature adult, and then into the long decline into old age. How do these things happen? Do we try to become grown up? We do. As little children, maybe we try to be grown up. But it sort of happens, and looking back, you're not quite sure how it's happened. How did I become like I am now? Why do you grow your hair, and then you lose it again, don't you? You have a lovely complexion, and you're all full of blemishes and wrinkles, and how does it happen? What can you do? Things just happen, don't they, in life? We grow, and so we grow in spirit, dear. And honestly, I think a lot of all I've done tried to do spiritual work since I was a young man, and no doubt has helped, but things just happen. We just grow up, I think. But again, looking at you, it's extraordinary, isn't it? This presence. It's ageless, isn't it? There isn't really no one's more. You're all present. This is the wonderful thing, and no one's better or worse than anybody else. We're all the same. We're all connected at this oneness that is nameless and formless and ageless, time and spaceless. Just one eternal presence. I am what one is. Actually, that reminds me, in Orthodoxy, where it's taught me so much in Russia, there's a phrase that is used constantly in every service. I think it's right. Jesus, the one that is. Which is exactly it, isn't it? Jesus Christ, the one that is. And then also in every service, which everyone says, from the patriarch down, something sinners, of whom I am the first. You see, because the moment I turn round like that, I begin to see everything wrong. I turn away from being the one that is into the one that is not. So, Jesus, the one that is, the one I am, and then I am the first of sinners. I am the one that turns away, and then the whole world is infected with my darkness. So the responsibility, you see, for the world starts here. And that's the responsibility for Making the world a better place starts here. I am the one to blame for everything that's wrong. And I learned this lesson as a young farmer when I realized I couldn't walk across my beloved grass without hurting it. My great clumsy feet bruised my beloved grass. How can this be? How can I be a farmer without hurting the grass, without hurting the earth? Why can't I be like a fairy, just dancing over the grass without hurting it? I suppose that's really what got me started on this spiritual journey. To discovering that actually this is the consequence of not being this. Well, my dears, we must put it into practice, mustn't we, in our own lives? Try to. Gosh, it's wonderful to look at you, you know. Every one of you is shining. Do you know you're all beautiful, every single one of you, without exception. Once upon a time, one of the few masters in my first school that was kind to me wrote in my little autograph book, "Beauty is God's handwriting on the walls of life." See it? If you could just see how you're all demonstrating that. Well, we don't usually, but today I'm going to suggest we just close our eyes now and just have a few minutes meditation, shall we? Now take this inwardly, you see. Take it down into your hearts and let it inform you, form within yourselves and abide there.